I thought I was taking a pay cut to do this. Dang, that's awesome.
I mean, it's a pay cut initially, but it's the same thing with any regional airline. Um, the natural progression in aviation is that you start at a regional to build hours and experience, and then you go to a major airline, right? And sorry, I wasn't recording because I didn't feel like it was something relevant to record, um, but the natural progression start at a regional, go to a major after you've built your hours and experience, right? The thing with dispatch is some of these major airlines are looking for young dispatchers. Like when I say young, I mean new to the field. They don't want dispatchers that are 25 years at SkyWest because they're completely indoctrinated to SkyWest policies, and it's really hard to get people to break habits that they had at SkyWest, right? So they want younger employee, fresher, more fresh employees than that. And so a lot of people within 5 years are going to a major. And I'm telling you right now, or you could do, kind of like Adam did and put some time in at a regional and then go into the FAA and be an inspector. And I'll tell you right now, Adam's not hurting. Adam started where that 5 year mark was. So dispatch inspectors make good money. That's just the way it is. But regionals will always screw you on pay because they feel like they're giving you hours and opportunities that way. They know the natural progression is to go to a major airline. So, and if they were paying you as much as a major airline pays their employees, then they're probably not going to get very many contracts. Um, you're not going to get very many contracts with the major airlines if you're a regional and your hourly employees are making that much money. That's the whole point, is the regionals make less money because they have to charge less than what the major can do it for, or else they don't get the major airline contracts. So you know it's just the way it is for us in the aviation industry. But um, but yeah, I mean, it's. Does anybody have any questions on any of this, or trying to get you guys excited about this so that you know?
Believe
So,
me, it is working.
would you suggest going to SkyWest and then in a few years start looking elsewhere once you have experience? Or
I
I mean,
I recommend going to whatever regional airline hires you,
mhm.
getting on with whatever airline you can get on with. Even apply for majors right off the bat. It's not going to hurt. I already told you guys that I had a student completed the class. Before she even got done with the class, she had an interview with Hawaiian Airlines, and Hawaiian picked her up. You know, so start applying for every single airline that you can. I mean, don't be cautious. You still got to factor in your cost of living and like, can you actually do it? But get on as quickly as you can. Start building experience, but continue. Never stop applying places. Every time a major opens up for hiring, apply. Every time, you know, the next level is opening up for applications, apply and put yourself out there. Take advantage. They have dispatch conferences across the country, you know, like conventions. Take advantage of them. Go out to them. Meet with the people that are in the industry and start, you know, there's a lot of truth to it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that goes for anyone, anywhere in the world. Making friends with people in the right places definitely benefits you in the long run. So the more you get out there, the more you apply yourself to the job, the quicker you're going to climb the ladder. So,
hey, Garrett, on average, how long does it take to move from a regional to a major? Is it usually, I mean, do people move as soon as like 6 months, or does it take at least a year?
I'd say 2 to 5 years is probably average time. But that doesn't mean that that's, you know, the norm. Like I said, my friend was there for a year and a half. I know people that have got on with a major right out of school. I know people that have got on to a major 10 years after they've been through, you know, after they've been the regional for 10 years, they get on. So, but I'd say the average person makes it before 5 if that's what they want to do. But that's without concern or regard to where they end up. Their goal is to get on with a major airline, and so they don't set their sights on one place and put all their eggs in that basket. You know, they apply for literally every major airline that is hiring. So, but the quicker you get on with a major, you can do lateral movements from major to major. You know, doesn't mean that you have to stop once you get into a major airline. You can always look for better living circumstances, you know. So but yeah, I mean, it's even at SkyWest, you know, there's opportunities to really get into the money there. Work your guts out, never stop learning, and you know, there's guys that are making 6-figure incomes at SkyWest Airlines that started out as dispatchers, just worked hard for the position they've made it to, you know. There's opportunities everywhere. So I tell you what, if you can get on right off the bat with one of these military contract companies and go do some time over in the sandbox, dispatching aircraft out of Turkey or, you know, Bahrain or, you know, places like that, you can make some real money real quick. And they take people right out of school all the time.
Use more words. What does that mean? I don't get it.
Military contract. So what they do is they go out and they dispatch military aircraft into like Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff like that. They're not physically based in that area, but they dispatch all the military aircraft going to that area.
And you don't have to be military?
No. Civilian
What?
jobs.
Huh. Cool.
And I'll tell you right now, military contract pays extremely well. So your base pay will probably be like 95,000, but because you're in a conflict zone and stuff like that, it just adds up really quick. Guys will go over to like Bahrain, and it's tax free, and they'll make, or no, I'm sorry, it's not tax free. You get taxed at 6%, I believe it is, in Bahrain. So it's taxed at 6%, which is a lot less than you get over here. And then since you're in a conflict zone and everything like that, your yearly salary, you do 3 months on, 3 months off, 3 months on, 3 months off every year, and your month or your yearly salary's 120 to 150 right off the bat. So
How do you find out about that?
just look on Indeed.com. There's companies.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to think of
Are
the
you an
names of some
expat
of them.
if you do it that way?
What was that?
Are you an expat if you do that?
Expat.
Or are you where you live in the other country and you give up you can keep your American passport, everything else? Or do you have to?
Oh yeah, you're just over there. You go over there on a working visa and live in country for 3 months at a time. So
That sounds nice.
yeah. So I mean, those guys, they'll go work their guts out for 3 months. 10-hour shifts for 3 months, and then um, they have 3 months off, so they go and see the world. I know a lot of people that do that. So um, military contract pays well and can be a very good life if you do it right. So anyways, so there's my spiel on that. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Hey,
So
Garrett, real quick,
yeah,
what's the typical hiring interviewing process with SkyWest? I know because that's the one that, you know, some or all of us just applied for.
yeah.
How does that process usually work? I mean, I don't know if it's a 10-minute conversation or if that's something we can cover in like 90 seconds, but
We can go over that really quick. So some of you guys have probably already received video interview invitations. One thing, I can't remember when the application was supposed to close.
it was
Yesterday.
Monday.
So did everybody receive an invitation to do a video interview yet?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Anybody been rejected? Okay. So the video interview is basic HR questions. What is your 5-year goals? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Name a time that they're just basic. You do 5 questions and it's just basic HR questions. It's super awkward because you're talking to yourself into a camera, a webcam, but just do it, get it done. Don't dress nice for it. Don't like do it in a dirty room or anything like that. Go somewhere that's quiet. Basic interview stuff, right? Don't have your dogs barking in the background, and then pay attention to the question, answer the question like you're sitting in front of a board, and then, smile, looking at the camera, that kind of stuff. After the video interview, it's like a week or two, you'll get a call or an email setting up an interview, an in-person interview. They'll fly you, if you don't live in St. George, they'll fly you down to St. George or Las Vegas. Just depends on where they're doing them at this time. And you will either take a test first or you'll go sit down in front of the board. And there's 3 people. It's Aaron Moore, Bill Kirshner, and Julia Phelps, typically. I think that's who has done the interviews every time. But Bill Kirshner's the director over dispatch, so he's like the head honcho for the dispatchers. Aaron Moore is the director over dispatch training, and Julia Phelps is the what do they call her? She is the lead instructor for training. So the deputy chief of training or something like that. Anyways, so 3 people, and you're gonna have a paper in front of you. They're gonna say, can you read the TAF, the 4th TAF down? Can you read the METAR on there? Can you read the PIREP? Can you read the NOTAM? They're going to ask you each one of those, like, can you read it? Tell me, decode it. Tell me what it says. Then after that, they're going to ask you the basic interview questions again. They're going to ask you a couple questions about the FARs that I told you guys to memorize. They're going to ask you, what are the 3 things that the pilot in command and the dispatcher are responsible for? What are the 3 things that the dispatcher is solely responsible for? What are the 4 factors when computing fuel? What are the 5 things that are required to be on the dispatch release? Things like that. Like, they're going to ask you the basic dispatch FARs. And along with the 5 HR questions that they'll ask you some basic HR questions. So once they've done that, then the last thing that you do in the interview section of it is they'll give you a paper, and they'll have 5 different situations. They say you're working your desk, and all 5 of these things hit your desk at the same time. What ones, number them 1 through 5 as to what priority you're going to give them. And the way you answer that question is you tell them, your number 1 priority is going to be the most urgent thing that's happening in the air. Okay? Air comes first, ground comes second, all the time. Whatever's happening in the air, if there's a pilot asking you a question about weather, if there's an emergency, anything like that, the emergency in the air comes before anything that's happening on the ground, because the people on the ground are safe, right? They're not in danger of anything. It doesn't matter if the dispatch release is 30 minutes late. The air takes the priority because we got to make sure that they get on the ground safely. So answer it that way. If there's something, like if it says your dispatch release is 10 minutes late and the pilot's called requesting the dispatch release, or, you know, a pilot has ACARSed you and is asking for weather at the destination, you're going to say, I'm going to take care of the pilot that ACARSed me, asking for weather information before I take care of the guy that's crying because he doesn't have a dispatch release. Okay. So just remember that. Air comes first, ground comes second. Then when you take the test, you're going to be asked a lot of questions about legal to go. Do you require an alternate? What are your alternate minimums? Some METAR decoding, like those codes that I told you guys to memorize last week for METARs. Like, what is GR? Does anybody know? In a METAR?
Missed.
Nope. BR is. GR is in Golf Romeo.
I know G stands for Gus.
That'd
Nope.
be hail.
Yeah, hail. So they want to know, like, you know, stuff like that. BR, GR, MI, FU, DD, or I'm sorry, DS, SS, things like that. They're going to want you to be able to say, what does that mean on a METAR? They may even like put 3 or 4 of them together, like plus TS, RA, GR, and BR. You know, so you've got heavy thunderstorms with rain, hail, and mist. Things like that. They want you to be able to decode a METAR very, very good, because that's your job. You're the weatherman, so but then you'll look at like some jet charts and decipher what are my landing minimums, what are my alternate minimums using the 1 NAVAID rule or 2 NAVAID rule, or this NOTAM. This NOTAM says that this is out. What are your landing minimums? Things like that. The test is like 30 questions, 40 questions, somewhere in there. And you have like 20 or 30 minutes to complete it. And you don't have to complete the whole test, but the more you get right, the more it helps you. So, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Oh, and then at the end of the interview, and after you've taken your test, they'll take you out and sit you down with the dispatcher and let you watch, you know, what it's like to be a dispatcher for a little bit. So, yeah. Any questions on any of that?
Are we going to be ready to do all that in 2 weeks?
In 4 weeks, yeah. I think you guys should be ready.
Okay.
Because, like, they'll probably call to set up interviews or email you for interviews in like 2 weeks. Because I'm guessing they want your video interviews done by what?
That we had 72 hours.
72
Friday.
hours. So they want them done by Friday. Yeah, so usually it's about a week to 2 weeks after that they call and set up interviews. And then it's usually 2 weeks after that. So it'll be a week after class is over. Usually there's a week cushion for you guys to get everything done in class. So but yeah, you guys will be ready for sure. I have faith in you. We're going to learn about reading weather tonight. Then tomorrow we're going to learn some other charts, how to read those. And then on Thursday, we should be finishing up with weather. Friday, we'll take the quiz for weather. And then on Monday, well, Friday, we'll also do some we'll talk about DRM and CRM and some other things. Dispatch resource management or crew resource management. We'll talk about some, aircraft accidents and stuff like that. And we'll just kind of make sure we're done with all the basic curriculum. And then as soon as we're done with that, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, hopefully at the latest, we'll really hit practical dispatch application. And when I say that, I mean am I legal to go? Do I need an alternate? 1 nav aid, 2 nav aid rules. We're going to really hit those hard so that when we get into class, you guys are more prepared. We'll even do, hopefully, my plan is next Friday to go over SkyVector again and go over some of the stuff on that chart, on those charts. Just hit them again and how to use SkyVector. And then, and we might even do a flight plan on Friday, build a flight plan. And then that first Monday in class, it's all flight planning for 2 weeks in a row. And like I said, I will be there. Davis will be there for 2 weeks. I mean, we will be there able to help you guys out. We can help you guys out with anything that you guys have touched in the course at all. So the first week, nobody has ever taken advantage of that, but I highly recommend that you guys do, because the second week, everybody's always like, oh, I'm so far behind, or I don't really understand this, and they just cram and cram and cram, and they get stressed out. And yeah, so the more we can do to get ahead of the curve and take care of things up front, the better you guys are going to be in the long run. So does that cover all the bases? Does everybody feel good about it? Oh, and the second week, Adam will be there too. At least he's planning on it. So, and it's a good time too. I bring a lot of food. We do like bagels and pizza and Cafe Rio, and like we eat really good those 2 weeks.
Hopefully he's there, because if he is, then I'll be staying with him for that last week, which would be awesome because he'll be charging me like $25 a night, which is much better than a hotel.
With who?
My mind went blank. The other guy,
Adam.
Oh, you'd stay with him?
Yeah, he said if he gets his whatever it is he has, he said he would just charge me $25 a night. So
That'd be pretty sweet.
yeah, definitely.
Get the 2-room suite. Yeah, like we party it up. It's a blast.
So, what would we start early in the morning to the night, or how?
Yeah, I personally like to start 10 or 11 o'clock. Usually before that, like I kind of sleep in just a little bit because I'm usually at the school until like 11 o'clock, 11:30. So I'll sleep till about 8:30, 9 o'clock. Go run some errands and then get over to the school and start, whoever's there, we start studying. If nobody's there, I'll just sit there and like watch Netflix or whatever. So
The school, is it at Sky West or is it at the hotel?
no, we don't do anything at Sky West unless you guys want to go sit with the dispatcher. But the class this last time, we had a change of plans. The school that we've been running the program out of, we don't know what's going on with them, but all of a sudden, like we couldn't get a hold of them. And so last time we ran it out of the convention center at the Holiday Inn Express. But we also did one class at the Hyatt next door, and I prefer the Hyatt. So I've requested that from Adam, that we do it all at the Hyatt. So.
Well, I'll be there for the 2 weeks. I'll be there all day in class.
Good. Yeah, come hang out. It really is fun. Like I really enjoyed the last 2 weeks. I get to the last 2 weeks and it's like finally get to enjoy what I'm doing, because talking to a computer, I mean, you guys are cool and all, but talking to a computer kind of gets old after a little while, to be honest with you guys. So it's fun to meet you guys in person and really dive into the fun part of dispatch. So, and flight planning is super fun. So, yeah. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got to say about that. Any more questions? All right. So we're going to get into weather, different types of reports, observations, forecasts, things like that. We're going to talk about some of the important reports that we use in dispatch. So METARs, I would write this down because this is a test question. It's an interview question. Everybody has to know this question. METARs come out every hour. Okay, these are observations of what is currently happening over the field. Okay. We've got a couple different ways that those can be made. That doesn't matter so much, but you guys need to know that METARs come out every hour. Okay. PIREPs, PIREPs are pilot reports. They're just reports of, something significant happening over a specific geographical area. And pilots write them, dispatchers can write them, air traffic control can write them. Doesn't matter who writes them. When they're written and put into the system, they pop up, and we can read what's going on over that particular area. So SD, these radar weather reports, we don't ever really look at. We don't care. So just disregard that one. Forecast, TAFs. This is another really important one to memorize. TAFs come out 4 times daily. Okay, every 6 hours. So they come out at their scheduled time to come out is at 0000 Zulu. So 0 Zulu, 0600 Zulu, 1200 Zulu, and 1800 Zulu. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're limited to that time. That just means that that's when they're scheduled to come out. They need to come out at that regularly scheduled time. If there's a change, they can do what we call an amendment. METARs can also change from hour to hour. When we see that, it's going to be labeled as either a SPECI, a Prob 30, or Prob 40, or a tempo. Well, no, tempos are a little different. So a SPECI, Prob 30, Prob 40, tempo, they're all kind of, they'll come out as a SPECI specifically. But, and then all these other ones, just we'll talk about them. So aviation routine weather reports are METARs. Okay, there are 5 things that are required to be in a METAR, and you can see them down here below. Okay, wind, speed, and direction. So wind, speed, and direction. Our VIS. Okay, this is our, we call this a sky condition. Okay, from here all the way to here, this is all called sky condition. Okay, this is our temp dew point spread. Right here. And the last thing is our altimeter setting. Okay, these are required to be on every single METAR, and I would memorize that. Okay, that's another test interview type question. What 5 things? And it's something you use every day when you're dispatching. Okay, so those things are, once again, I wish I could just like type on the screen, but no, I've got to do this freaking shitty pencil. So wind speed / direction, VIS, sky condition, temp dew point, and altimeter. Okay. Memorize those 5 things. Have to be in a METAR. If they are not, we are not legal to dispatch to that airport. Okay, we have to have all 5 in order to dispatch. Okay, so the wind, this is in true course. Okay, so this is not magnetic, this is true course. This first section is our wind direction. So this wind is coming from 280 degrees. This is the headwind, okay? So it's coming from the east to the west. So what's the reciprocal of 280 degrees? 100 degrees, okay? So it's coming from from 280 to 100 degrees. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand that? That is super important.
Is that from west to east or east to west?
From west to east. I'm sorry. Did I say east to west?
Yeah, you did.
My bad. So from the west at 280 degrees to the east at 100 degrees. Okay, so if you have runway 13, runway 21 to choose from, which runway would you choose if you were taking off or landing?
I would choose runway 21
Why?
because you'll have a headwind component.
Exactly. Okay, we always take off and land into the wind. We need that headwind because it helps the aircraft produce more lift. Okay, so 2-1, notice it's the closest to our wind direction. Okay, and I know it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but 7 knots is really going to reduce our takeoff roll, or it's really going to help our landing. Reduce our landing distance. Okay. Visibility, we see this a lot of times. Oops. Like this. Okay. We'll see the visibility as 5 miles or 6 miles. Okay. If you see anything in a METAR, the most you'll see is it'll say this. It'll say plus 6 SM. Okay. This P, if you remember the METAR decoder that I gave you guys, that website, the P stands for plus or greater than.
Does both the METAR and the TAF then only go up to 6 statute miles? I thought the METAR went up to 10.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. So it is 10 miles on the METAR. It's 6 miles on the TAF. I'm sorry. So METAR will go up to a P10 SM. If you see that, that just means like infinite visibility. Okay. Or greater than 10 miles of visibility. Sometimes we'll see our visibility as 5/8 or 1/4. Okay. Typically, when we see visibility drop to a fraction, If it drops below 1 mile of visibility, if the runway or if the airport has RVR, okay, what we'll see after this visibility right here, and it's dropped down below 1 mile, remember, we'll see something like R34 right, and then you'll see a slash. It'll say something like 6,000 RVR, or it'll say like 4,500 V 6,000 RVR, but something to that effect, okay? So if RVR, or if visibility drops below 1 mile and the runway or the airport that we're landing at has RVR capability, the RVR will be listed as something like that. Okay, this tells us that runway 34 right has 6,000 feet RVR, or 4,500 varying to 6,000 RVR. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So this sky condition part, okay, starts out with if there's precipitation or significant weather that needs to be reported that's happening over the field, like right here, that's always listed right after the visibility. Okay, so the reason why the visibility is at 5 statute miles is because right now there's a light drizzle. Okay, and also in that same breath, there's also BR, and BR is?
I want to say mist?
Yep.
Fog? Was it mist?
Mist, yep. So we've got a light drizzle with mist. Okay. So that's a good indication as to why the visibility isn't 10 miles or greater. Okay. Right now in Salt Lake, you may see something like this. You may see like 6 statute miles and FU. What would that stand for?
Smoke.
Smoke. So it comes from the Latin word fumare, which is smoke, right? So there you go. There's some different things that we need. You guys really need to know this section here. What with that smoke? Don't remember how it was 6 statute miles, and then just FU. Is that like what kind of smoke? Does that make sense?
Any
So just,
fires right now?
huh?
Moderate.
Yeah, moderate. Okay. So if there's nothing, if there's not a minus or a plus before our abbreviation, then it's moderate smoke. Okay. Meaning that there's probably a decent amount of smoke in the valley. Does that make sense? So this indicates how much, this indicates what the sky condition, why the sky condition is reducing visibility. This part of the sky conditions section tells us the cloud levels. Okay. So all we need to do, notice how this says BKN 005. That's the first number. All we do to know how high that is add 2 zeros to the end. Okay. So how high is that broken layer of clouds?
500 feet.
Exactly. So here's the ground. If we measured to the base of the clouds would start at 500 feet. That's where that broken layer of clouds are. Okay. What constitutes a ceiling? Do you guys remember that? Going back to our FARs.
That's clouds. It's so if it's 7/8 or greater, then it's overcast. If it's
Right. So
3/8
less
5/8.
specific than that. What constitutes a ceiling? There's a specific definition I'm looking for.
It's cloud cover or cloud height.
Nope.
It's the base of the cloud.
Getting closer. So this is one that I'd have committed to memory as well, because this is on your practical test. This is also going to be probably in your interview. Okay. Ceiling is defined as the lowest layer of broken or overcast clouds or vertical visibility. You guys remember that? Remember talking about that one? This is where it comes into play. Okay. So like you were saying, broken, we've got broken here, 5/8 to 7/8. If it's OVC, okay, if we see OVC, that means overcast, and that's 7/8 to like complete coverage. I guess you could say 8/8 or one whole, right? So overcast is complete coverage, complete cloud coverage. Broken 5/8 to 7/8, scattered 3/8 to 4/8, and few less than 3/8. If you see SKC, that means that it, or CLR, that means there's no clouds over the field. Okay.
So what was that full definition? The lowest level of broken or overcast
So
and
it's
some vertical visibility.
lowest layer of broken, overcast clouds, I should say, or clouds, or we'll see it written out in the METAR is VV. It stands for vertical visibility. Okay. That's a super important one. So is everybody good with that one?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So that's this section here. So what this is telling us, let's kind of decode this a little bit. So it's saying that we've got a broken cloud layer at 500 feet, 900 feet, and then an overcast layer at 1800 feet. So if we've got our runway here, okay, got our runway. If we were to measure to the bottom of the first broken cloud layer, we'd be 500 feet above the runway. Okay. Then there'd be another cloud layer 900 feet above the, with its base 900 feet above the runway. And then another cloud layer that's complete coverage. So this is broken, remember? So we're 5/8 to 7/8 of the cloud, or of the sky above the airport. But this cloud layer is overcast, so it completely is covering the entire, over the entire airport. Okay, but this one's, so this broken layer is at 900, this broken cloud layer is at 1800 feet. Or, I'm sorry, overcast cloud layer is at 1800 feet. So broken, broken, overcast. Is everybody good with that? So let's say that that doesn't say broken, that says few at 005, broken 900, overcast 1800. Where would our ceiling be?
900.
At 900 feet. Okay, let's say that this says this is just completely gone. So we got few at 500, overcast at 1800. Where would our ceiling be?
1800.
At 1800 feet. Pretty simple, right? Okay, that being said, let's say that both of these are gone and we have overcast at 1800 feet. Do we need an alternate?
Yeah, it's 2,000-foot visibility.
No, not visibility.
Or 2,000-foot.
Ceilings. Okay. So what if this says few at 018? Would we require an alternate?
No.
No.
Right, because it's not a ceiling, right? Ceiling has to be BKN, OVC, or VV. Okay. Drill that into your brains. Okay. Here we have our temperature and dew point spread. So this is saying that it's 2 degrees Celsius for our temperature. And then our dew point, is 0.2 degrees Celsius. What does that mean? Why is that significant to us?
That means there's moisture in the air.
That means
Yes.
that the air has become saturated and we now have visible moisture, right? Exactly, like you guys nailed it. Okay, we're going to have visible moisture because the air is now 100% saturated with moisture. So that's being presented in this scenario as mist. Okay, when we see these two numbers converge like that, that means that almost 100% of the time we're either going to have mist or what is FG?
Fog.
Fog. Exactly. Okay. So temperature, dew point. Temperature is the first number, dew point is our second number, and it's always in Celsius. Okay, this is our altimeter setting. Okay, so what is our standard altimeter, pilots? If anybody knows, let me know, but pilots should.
29.92.
Good. Standard atmosphere, 29.92. Okay. So are we higher or lower than standard atmosphere?
We're lower because it's cold.
Okay. So does that mean the air is less dense or more dense?
More dense.
More dense. Okay. So 29.53. I'm just going to show you guys a little trick really quick. Okay. For every 0.1 or tenth, and we've got basically 0.4 difference, right? We're going to add 1,000 feet. Or I'm sorry, in this case, because it's less, we're going to subtract 4,000 feet. So let's say that our airport is at 5,200 feet. Okay, with this altimeter setting, our pressure altitude is going to be pretty darn close to 1,200 feet. So our airplane is going to perform as if it were at 1,200 feet. Does that mean anything to anybody, or am I?
No, I'm trying really hard to figure it out.
Okay,
We're
see,
gonna burn more fuel because the higher you go, the less fuel you burn, right?
nope. So this with a lower pressure altitude, okay, what happens is the engine performs a lot better. You get better fuel burns, you get better thrust. Your takeoff distance is going to be less. Your landing distance is going to be less. Because the engines have more air molecules to suck in. When the air is more dense, that means that there's more air for the engines to use, right? So
How did you get the 1,200?
So, like I said here, every tenth that we have is the equivalent of 1,000 feet.
No. I don't think that's right. I think so. When I went through flight training, I did 2 minus whatever the pressure altitude is. Sometimes it gives you a positive number, sometimes it gives you a negative number.
Okay,
And
but how do you get the pressure altitude?
You take your field elevation and either add or subtract that number you get. So like 2 minus 2,953
is the
0.4
difference of
times 1,000. So 0.4 times 1,000, whoops, it was 400. And then you subtract 400 feet from.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. I added a zero there. So it's for every one. I'm sorry, in the ones place. I always do that, damn it. So 29.92. You're right. So I added an extra zero there. 29.92 minus 29.53. I'm thinking this one right here. If it's one, like let's say that it's at 30.92, that's 1,000 feet. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
There we go. Okay. So you're right. Sorry. And I do that like every time, and then I always either get corrected or catch myself at some point and go, wait a second, I did that wrong. Thank you for catching me early. So you're right. So 29er 0.92 minus 29er 0.53. Let's say that the airport elevation is at 5,200 feet. We subtract the 400. That puts us at 4,800 feet. And that is now, we call this our pressure altitude. So the airplane will perform as if it were at 4,800 feet. So your performance numbers are going to be a lot better because the air molecules are much more dense down at this altitude than they are up here, right? Think of it as like, let's watch a quick video. I'll show you what happens when pilots take off their oxygen mask at 25,000 feet. Oops. Okay, they do this in the military. To teach pilots what it's like, what happens when they start suffering from what we call hypoxia. Hypoxia is a really fancy word for lack of oxygen to the brain. Okay, so when the brain doesn't get enough oxygen, you hallucinate, you just lose your marbles. You can't think clearly. Everything slows down in your brain, and it's bad. You will go unconscious at some point and could possibly die from it. So everybody watch this video. This is what happens at higher altitude because of the air density. Okay. All right, watch this video. That video was not what I was hoping to show you guys. This video, the guy's like 4 of spades, and he gets kind of stuck on it. So this is like, that kind of taught you some of the, like, why they do it. This is what it looks like when they do take off their oxygen mask at 25,000 feet. So. Pretty crazy, right?
It's crazy.
So yeah, the engines kind of do the same thing. I mean, it's not like a loss of oxygen to the brain, obviously, but there is a loss of oxygen to the engine, so the engine can't burn or produce as much thrust as it can when there's more air. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's why the altimeter's required, is because we need, and pilots need to know also the altimeter setting with, you know, how I said that the pressure altitude is going to be 4,800 feet. If the pilot doesn't change to match this 2953, the airplane is going to think that the field elevation is at 4,800 feet when it's really at, you know, 5,200 feet. So there's going to be a, you know, 400-foot difference, and they could smash into the ground really hard, or they could, you know, stay flying for a long time because they think that they're supposed to be landing at 5,200 feet, and really it's 400 feet below them. So they adjust their altimeter to match that setting. But as a dispatcher, when we see that, we interpret performance: pilot, altitude, dispatcher, performance. So that's our 5 most important things here in the METAR. The 5 required things in the METAR. Okay, this right here is a date and time. So the date was the 30th, and this METAR came out at 0553 Zulu. So date.
I don't
I'm
know.
not seeing the METAR on your screen.
Oops, I'm sorry. Gosh dang it. I pause the screen and forget that you guys can't see it. Okay. So date and time is this section right here. Date is the 30th. Time is 0553. So just take the first 2 numbers. That's always going to be the date. Last 4 is always going to be the time. And then this first little identifier here, that's the airport or station identifier. So this was KMSP. Where's that?
Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yep. Mini. Cool. So Minneapolis 30th at 0553 Zulu. Winds are 280 at 7 knots. 5 miles visibility. Light drizzle with mist. Broken. The clouds are broken at 500, broken at 9, overcast at 1,800 feet. Temperature is 2. Dew point is 2. Altimeter is 2953. Okay, that's how you guys will read it when you're in the interview or being asked that verbally. That's how you guys would read it. So this remark part, you guys are going to need to learn as well. So let's talk about this specific remark. And the way you're going to learn the remarks are by using that little decoder website that I sent you guys. Use that because it's going to help you guys understand all of these different weird abbreviations. And then use that and look at thousands of METARs, and you'll start to understand the natural progression of how these things are written. So RMK always stands for remark. Okay. AO2 is the type of station that is reporting the weather. AO2 stands for automated. So it's an automated weather observation. And it has what we call a precip or precipitation discriminator. So does anybody understand what a precipitation discriminator is?
It's an automatic machine that can tell the difference between clouds, snow, rain, hail, all types of precipitation.
Good. So it can decipher, am I looking at fog? Am I looking at mist? Am I looking at hail, snow, snow grains? Any of that. It can pick out what type of precipitation is falling. Sometimes we'll see this as an AO1, and that just means that it's an automated station, but it's just going to give us a reading saying like it's raining. You know, it's not going to give us any like real description as to what type of weather is being, or what type of precipitation there is. Does that make sense?
I'd like to point out too, they are extremely rare.
Yeah, they've done away with a lot of them, but there are stations that still have them. So we need to, you know, be able to identify AO1 versus AO2.
Can you go over AO1 real quick again?
AO1 just means that it's an automated station. AO2 is automated with a precipitation discriminator. So we also have some that are written by a weather reporter, or I'm sorry, a weather, what do we call them? Weather observer.
Are you looking? Oh, there you go.
So weather observers, those, like, you're not going to see anything really disseminating. You're not going to see this remark section typically when it's a weather observer. Typically, the only time we see a METAR from a weather observer is when our airline has requested it. So he's just going to give us this information. Okay, he's going to give us the absolute basics. Does that make sense to everybody? He's not going to like tell us rain ended at 52 past the hour, drizzle began at 8 after the hour, ended at 21 after the hour, and then began again at 52 after the hour. He's not going to give us all this other information. So that brings us into our next section. We've talked about remark. We talked about AO2. This first abbreviation stands for rain, right? Because it's drizzle or raining. Okay. Rain ended. Sorry, it's super sloppy, but rain ended at 52 minutes past the hour. What hour? This hour. Okay, so the rain ended 1 minute before this METAR came out. That's the first little section here. Rain ended 52 minutes past the hour. This DZB stands for drizzle began 8 minutes past the hour, ended, the E stands for ended 21 minutes past the hour, and then it began again at 52 minutes past the hour. So rain ended 52 minutes past the hour. Drizzle began 8 minutes past the hour, ended 21 minutes past the hour, began 52 minutes past the hour. Super confusing, huh? Okay, SLP stands for sea level pressure. Okay. Sea level pressure, it's in millibars. Our altimeter here is in inches of mercury. So this is the metric equivalent of this, basically. Just put a 1 there, and that will be your millibars.
How long does it take until this just comes naturally?
What was that?
How long does it take until this just comes naturally?
A long time.
Awesome.
No, I'll talk about that a little bit later. What I want you guys to do, we'll talk about it now. But this is going to go for TAFs. This is going to go for PIREPs, NOTAMs, everything. This is going to be your guys' homework for a while. Go to aviation, weather.gov. Okay. Click on METARS. Do KSLC or whatever airport you guys really want to do. And you can do like the past 36 hours. But then just go through and decode every single one of those. Let's look at this one. Does somebody want to take a stab at what this one is?
Can we get you to
Beginning to end? What was that?
Could I get you to zoom in a little bit?
Yeah. So let me mark the one I want you to read again. How do I make this disappear? There we go. All right. I want you to read this one right here.
For the 4th, for 2154 Zulu, coming from the wind direction 280 radial at is it 800 knots? You had 2 zeros for the wind speed too, or is that just for this?
No, that'd be one hell of a wind.
So just 80 knots?
Nope, just 8 knots.
Okay. And then 10 statute miles visibility, few clouds at 100 feet, scattered at 160, broken at 240.
So on the sky condition with the clouds, we do add the 2 zeros to that.
So is that 10,000 then?
Yeah.
24,000?
Yep, 10,000, 16,000, and 24,000.
And then that's 29 degrees Celsius, right?
Yep.
And then the dew point is at 0.3?
Nope, 3 degrees Celsius.
All right. And then the altimeter is at 30.00, right?
Yep.
For the remarks, The AO2, that's the weather observation precipitation discriminator we were talking about. The SOP, do you always add a 1 in front of it?
Yep, so 1105.
Okay. And that's about, I know.
Yep, so TCU stands for Towering Cumulonimbus Clouds. What's important about towering cumulonimbus clouds?
Thunderstorms are usually going to be associated with that.
Yep, so thunderstorms are towering cumulonimbus. That's typically the first stage of thunderstorm, correct?
Right.
But it also could just mean really turbulent in that area. So TCU, towering cumulonimbus clouds, distant. So DSNT stands for distant, distant southeast. So we've got towering cumulonimbus to the southeast in the distance. The T at the end, this is our true temperature dew point spread. Okay, so this right here tells us a more accurate reading for this. So this is taking the temperature and turning it into a decimal. Whenever we see a 0 at the beginning of this 4-number section here, the 0 stands for a positive number. Okay, so it is a positive 28.9 degrees Celsius. And the dew point is a positive 0.8 degrees Celsius. Okay, if there was a 1 there, like in this line right here, notice that the dew point is a -3, that M stands for minus. If we look at our temperature dew point spread here, you can see that there's a 1 right here at the beginning of those 4 numbers. That 4-number block. So that means our dew point for this one, our dew point is a negative 3.3 degrees Celsius. And you can see that right here. Did that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
So whenever you see this T in the remarks section, always know that that's your accurate temperature dew point spread. So you can just look at this and interpret what this is supposed to read. So a positive 29.4 degrees and negative 3.3 degrees.
So what does it mean with the the M03, 29/M03?
Minus.
M is minus?
Yeah. Which is indicated by the 1 in your accurate temperature dew point spread. Does that make sense?
Not yet.
So right here too. So this is our temperature dew point, but this is rounded to the nearest whole number. Okay? And you'll see that on every single METAR, rounded to the nearest whole number, rounded to the nearest whole number, so on and so forth. Okay? But in the remarks section, you are always going to see an accurate where they take it out to the nearest decimal point. Okay? So when you see this T in the remarks section and 8 digits after it, know that this is your accurate temperature dew point spread. You can split this in half. So you have the first 4 numbers are 0, 2, 8, 9. If we look at our temperature here, we can see that this is supposed to read positive 28.9 degrees, right? So it's been rounded to 29 in our main body of the METAR, but in our remarks section, it's written out as 0289. The 0 stands for a positive temperature reading. Okay, so just take away that 0, make it a plus sign, and then you have 28.9 degrees Celsius. Then this minus part, -1, you can see this 1 at the beginning of those 4 digits. The 1 equals negative, okay? So our dew point is going to be a negative 0.6 degrees Celsius. So if we round 0.6 degrees Celsius to the nearest whole number, we get a -1 degree Celsius. Does that make sense?
I think so. So the next one down where it's T02780000, that would mean that it's a positive 27.8 degrees and 00.0 degrees.
So for the dew point.
Yeah, for the dew point.
First 4 numbers are our temp. The last 4 numbers are the dew point. Is that gravy?
Yeah.
Okay. So use that website that I gave you guys last week. Right? Let's.
Can you repeat it?
Huh? Repeat what?
Which website it was?
Yeah. I'll put it in today's.
I got it right here. I can put it in the chat box too.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, throw it in the chat box and then we can. So this is your Annie, what was it called? Orphan Annie decoder ring. You know, like on Christmas Story, you'll shoot your eye out, kid. That ring that he waited for weeks for, and then he finally gets it and he's like, it's a crummy commercial? This is your decoder ring. Use this, love it, become familiar with it. But you guys know the main 5 ingredients to our METARs, right? Has to be there. Every METAR, you have to have those 5 basic ingredients, right? What were they again? Whoever?
Wind speed and direction.
Wind speed.
Visual.
Visibility.
Visual. The sky condition.
Sky condition.
The temperature dew point spread.
Yep.
And the altimeter.
Yep. So ALTIMETER. Okay. So on every single METAR, you guys should be able to just fly through those first 5 sections without a problem. And you always know that this is the time. You always know this is the airport or station identifier, right? So you guys should be able to read all the way up to the remarks section every time without any problem. I mean, it's pretty straightforward up to that point. Remarks always get iffy. Like, I have to look them up. You know, Adam sometimes has to look up what it means because we're just like, you just don't see some of these remarks very often. So don't feel like the remarks should just come to you, because they don't. Eventually they will. I mean, that's really the long-term hope. But you've got to look at thousands of them to get to that point where it starts coming easily. So up to the remarks section, though, you guys should be able to just pound those out. Like, I should be able to ask any of you guys what they mean, to decode that. You guys should be able to get to that point. Okay. There's a couple little things that I don't expect you guys to know, like COR. Just understand that means corrected. If we see, we see KSLC is the first thing there. Okay. If it says speci after, how often are METARs put out?
Every hour.
Every hour. So a speci is when weather has changed. There's been significant enough of a change in the weather sometime between the two METARs. So sometime between here and here, the weather changed significantly enough to require a new METAR. That could be wind speed and direction, it could be sky coverage, it could be precipitation, it could be visibility. Any of our main body here, if it changes significantly enough, we'll see a speci. Okay. And it'll be between KSLC and our date and timestamp. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's see if we can find where a speci may be. Might have one at Atlanta. Let's see, KLGA, KLAX. Freaking lucky turds. Well, they're beautiful all across the country. Of course I leave when that happens, right?
When we see the money sign on that, that means that the airport's something's down.
So this maintenance sign or this money sign here, that just means that
Yeah.
the station, the weather station, is ready for service. Like it needs servicing.
Oh, okay.
So sometime between these two METARs, it got serviced. It doesn't mean it's broken or anything. It's more for like the airport to say, hey, go run a diagnostic on it or something like that really quick. So doesn't really mean anything for us as dispatchers. Man, what the heck? This is Bolshevik. Oh, where always sucks. Of course, there's not going to be one.
What about Oklahoma?
Looks like Minnie had some crap weather today, but there's no species.
We had bad weather in St. George yesterday.
Had bad weather in St. George. No species.
Try Anchorage.
Okay, just 1 second. DFW's getting some weather soon. Let's see, Anchorage is KANC, right? Nope. I know this one's weird. It's like PANC, maybe. Yeah. Hawaii, that brings up a good point. Hawaii and Alaska, their ICAO always starts with a P. Mexico always starts with a M. Canada always starts with a C. Anchorage is good. Okay. BRW.
Look at Halifax.
I don't know Halifax's. Or CYYZ. Toronto.
Halifax is YHZ.
YHZ. Let's see if we can find some poopy weather. Nothing in Halifax. YWG. Holy smokes. This is freaking crap. MMMX. H&L. I'm running out of ideas.
Will it show England? It's always raining there.
Yeah, I can't remember the ICAO code for.
I think it starts with an E.
Garrett, you might try just typing Specie into a search engine and it'll pull up. I just pulled up one that showed the criteria for it.
Where at?
I just did a Google search, putting Specie METAR in there.
Good point. I'll look at images maybe. There you go. Oh, it's before the airport code. So Specie KMDW, so Midway. You guys see that? You did until I clicked that. Okay. So that's how the species look. Just means that between the two, sometime during that hour, there was significant enough of a change in weather that required a change in the METAR that was out. But Rex, I'm glad you're here. How many METARs did you look at before it started making sense to you?
Dozens.
Yeah.
Again, it was well into studying METARs before they started becoming clear. And having been away from it for a couple of months and just listening in for the last 30 minutes has brought everything back, most everything.
Yeah, it takes looking at dozens, I would even say hundreds, to really become familiar with it. So do that, like what I was just doing. Just go in. You can even, let's like do half screen here and pull up a separate window and just do ICAO codes. ICAO. Okay. ICAO codes. And let's see. There you go. Or ICAO airport codes. Yeah. There you go. Look up airport codes. Sometimes you got to keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Here, if you want. There you go. So this gives you all of your American cities. Just know that they all start with a K. If they're in the 48 contiguous United States, they start with a K. And then just start throwing these suckers in there. And then just look at hundreds of different airports. Look at weather across the United States. Get a different flavor, because some of these, once, like if I just look at these ones, I'm going to get a lot of repeat information and I'm going to see a lot of similarities, Like look at this hour to this hour. There's very little difference between the two METARs. So if you look at different airport codes, you're going to get different results, and you're going to see more airport or more METAR codes, and you're going to decode a lot of different things. But pull this up, pull up some airport codes, and then go into that website, this one, and use that to, like, if you run into something you don't know, pull this up and look for it. See if you can figure out what this METAR is trying to tell you. Okay. It's not going to come overnight. You're going to have to look at a lot. So here's my soapbox for that. And take me seriously on it too. You know, some people choose not to, and then they always ask me, what do you mean? You know, I don't know. I've never seen that before. I don't understand what that means. And it just makes class harder on them. So take me seriously. Look at a lot of them, and you'll become METAR wizards.
And you need to be for the oral exam as well as the interview.
Yeah, for sure. And to be a dispatcher, you need to be a METAR wizard. You know, Rex has sat in with me several times, or with another dispatcher several times. And how many METARs and TAFs do we go through in a day, would you say, Rex?
Hundreds.
Yeah, hundreds. And it's constantly changing. You know, just because you looked at it when you did your flight plan, if there's a change or if something happens, it notifies you, hey, you know, this METAR just came through, this METAR just came through. And we have to be very cognizant of how does this affect my flights that are A, already in the air, and B, I've already done flight plans for. Because if something goes, if the pilot hasn't taken off yet and your destination goes below, like now requires an alternate because this new METAR or TAF came out, you have to go and amend the dispatch release and get that to the pilot as soon as possible, because that's a legality. That's our job. You know, if the dispatch release is no longer legal, or if it now requires an alternate, we need to go in and amend the release and notify the pilot of the change, because, you know, if it's 10 and clear, and believe me, I've seen it, where it's like they're not forecasting a cloud to be in the sky all day, and then, you know, 2 hours later, the pilot is just, or an hour later, the pilot's getting ready to take off, and all of a sudden his destination goes to like 2 miles of visibility and 1,000-foot ceilings. Now he requires an alternate. And so that means he's going to need more fuel. That means that he's going to need an alternate airport on the dispatch release. We're going to need to call air traffic control and tell them that we're adding an alternate airport to our flight strip, you know, so that they have a heads up. Like, this is our job. We have to be able to read these reports, and we have to be good at it. You know, but like I said, there's still things that I have to look up. There's still things that Adams, you know, looks up. I don't think you ever see enough to where you know absolutely everything on a METAR, but you should be able to get the meat and potatoes out of a METAR every time you look at it. And to be honest with you, the remarks section, when you're out on the floor, you don't really need, or you don't typically pay a whole lot of attention to. It's important. But if you guys are super comfortable with this, that's really where you guys need to be comfortable. the remarks section you need to know, but you're always going to look something up. You need to know where to find the answer if you don't know. So I hope I've drilled the importance of the METARs and TAFs into your heads. But that being said, I've been talking for a really long time and have not taken a break. So why don't we let's jump back on at 8:30. That'll give you guys plenty long of a dinner/potty break. So. Okay, so we talked about METARs. Let's go continue on with this. Alrighty. So we talked about METARs. All right, let's talk about PIREPs really quick. Okay, PIREPs, we already talked about how they stand for pilot reports, and we kind of broke these down last week. Okay, remember that this is something, test question, interview question. UA stands for upper air. UUA stands for urgent upper air. Okay, so difference between routine and urgent is just a U. Pretty simple, right? Then these are the other mandatory things. Just like a METAR, you've got mandatory fields, right? So, well, I guess all of these are mandatory to be on there. So it's going to tell us, is it routine or urgent? Where is it over? What time did he report it? What flight level was he at? And what type of aircraft was he flying, right? That has to be in every single PIREP that we see. After we get through the mandatory stuff, so everything up to here is mandatory. After we get through that, the pilot's either going to be reporting a sky cover, weather, temperature, wind speed, turbulence, icing, or just some remark about the area. Okay. So, to go through this PIREP right here, and I'm just kind of cruising through PIREPs right now because we've already hit these pretty hard. But upper air PIREP over Minneapolis, the MSP VOR. So MSP Minneapolis VOR off the 090 degree radial and 50 miles out. Okay, so here's the VOR. He's off the 090, so he's due east of the station. Okay. So he's due east of the station and he's 50 miles away. Okay. The time that it was reported was at 1845 Zulu. Flight level, once again, we add 2 zeros to the end of that. So that's 3,000 feet. Okay. The type of aircraft was an Embraer 170. So it's kind of like our 175s, but a little different, a little smaller. He's reporting a sky condition, okay? So the sky coverage was overcast at 3,200 feet. Tops were at 12,500 feet. Okay. The temperature was 4 degrees Celsius. Icing, he encountered light rime ice. And then the remarks was he encountered that light rime ice during climb. The light rime, he encountered it in the clouds. Does that make sense? So everything up to here, pretty simple, straightforward. But after this, I mean, you pretty much just need to know what these are, and then you can kind of fumble your way through what they're reporting, okay? So memorize these abbreviations, and then everything else will just kind of come by looking at them and just kind of thinking logically about things, okay? Sky cover, overcast clouds at 32, and tops were at 12,500, temperature 4 degrees, icing, light rime. Encountered it during climb, light rime in the clouds. Simple. But it comes with time, okay? Okay, radar, let's just not worry about that right now. TAF. TAFs, if you can decode a METAR, you can decode a TAF. TAFs are just simplified METARs. Does that make sense?
Do you tend to use both or just one?
Yes, you have to use both because a METARs are an hourly report, right? So it's what's currently happening over the airport.
So would you have to amend a dispatch release for a PIREP?
No. PIREPs are just informational, and it's over a specific geographical area. Okay, so we don't have to fly over that specific geographical area. We can fly around it. We can fly through it if it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't matter, right? Because it's just like we can skirt it. It doesn't really affect our destination or our departure airport. I mean, it can, right? I mean, it can be like encountered moderate to severe turbulence on approach into Dulles Airport. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be happening when our aircraft gets there. It's just a pilot had that happen to him. He reported it saying, hey, heads up, this might be occurring when you get here. And then that's kind of the end of it. Now, if we have a no icing aircraft, or let's say, well, yeah, no icing aircraft is a great example. Or if there's a severe icing SIGMET and a PIREP pops up that says, hey, we encountered severe ice, then we have to do something about it. That means, I mean, it doesn't call for an amendment on our dispatch release. It just means that we can't fly into that area at all. Okay? Because we can never dispatch into a severe icing SIGMET. If our airport, let's say that it pops up over our destination, the severe icing SIGMET, we can't we'd basically just have to. I mean, if we're 30 minutes away from the airport and a severe icing SIGMET pops up, we'll just tell him that he has to hold outside of that area and see if any other reports come through. But typically, when those pop up, the PIREP is only valid for 30 minutes, and after those have popped up, typically we're far enough away that they're really no factor. Weather tends to move on past an area after 30 minutes. Things change. Typically. But they almost always, a PIREP will never require an amendment to a release. Now, all right, so this is what a TAF looks like. Okay, what times are TAFs released? Went through this at the very first of class.
0 Zulu, 600 Zulu, 1200 Zulu, and 1800 Zulu.
Okay, good. So 0, 6, 12, and 18 Zulu. So this one, they're not released directly at those times. Sometimes it's typically like 30 minutes before. But but this is what it looks like. So we've got this TAF came out on the 4th at 23:39 Zulu. Okay, so pretty close to the 2400 hour Zulu TAF, right? Okay, this TAF, so this is our date and time of release. This portion right here, this box right here, I'll make it cleaner. We call this the valid time. Okay. This TAF is valid from the 5th at 0000 Zulu until the 6th at 0600 Zulu. Okay. So let's say for some reason no other TAF is reported for the next 24 hours. This TAF will be valid until 0600, and then after 0600, it requires a new TAF. Okay. That would never happen at Chicago, but we do see it happen at like our outstations that require an observer to write the TAF in the METAR. Okay. So places like CMX, what's that? Houghton Hancock Airport, up in northern Michigan, right on the Canadian border. That one we have to have a weather observer. We have to have our weather observer Yeah, our weather observer has to go and write the TAF or METAR for that outstation because they don't have an automated station there. So that's when we'll see that kind of stuff. But all of our main hubs will have an automated station produce these. Does that make sense? I'll take that as a yes. Hold on just 1 second. Yeah, so valid time. This also counts for, like, let's say that we had an international flight that for some reason was going to be, their ETA was after this 0100 Zulu on the 6th. Let's say their ETA falls after the 0100. Well, we don't really have an ending time for an ETA after 0100 Zulu, right? So this identifies when when this TAF ends. So it would be 0600 Zulu. That's when that TAF ends. Like I said, you're not going to see that kind of stuff in like our major hubs: Chicago, Minneapolis, San Francisco, LA, JFK, LaGuardia, Newark, any of those places. But anyways, so date and time of release, valid time. This is what? Somebody call it out.
The direction and the knots that it's going in that direction.
What specifically?
So 190
Right, but what specifically?
is coming from the
the airplane or
the wind.
the wind? Okay.
The wind is coming from that
The
direction.
radial 190.
Yep. So the wind is coming from 190 degrees, which is almost due south, and blowing to the north. Okay. So the wind is coming from somewhere in lower Illinois and stuff. Okay, so wind speed and direction. What is this?
Visibility.
Okay, and how much visibility do we have?
More than 6 statute miles. More than 6 miles.
Yep. So I guess I shouldn't say how much visibility do we have. It's really the correct verbiage would be how much visibility are they forecasting, right? Because this is a 24-hour forecast. This is like the weatherman on the news getting up there and saying, this is what we think the weather's going to do. METAR is what it actually is doing. And the TAF is like, what do we predict the weather to do over the next 24 hours? Okay. Now, this part right here, what is that? This SCT 25 or 2.
The clouds are scattered at flight level 25,000 feet.
Yep. Or flight level 250, right?
Yes.
So yeah, you were saying it right. But yeah, you just decoded a TAF. Pretty simple, right? It's like a super simplified METAR because it's a forecast. It's just a guess at what the weather's going to be doing. So anyways, that's the first line. Okay. Here's the important part to remember about a TAF that confuses everybody. Okay. What time was this TAF released?
23:39 Zulu on the 4th.
Okay, 23:39 Zulu on the 4th. That means that from 23:39 Zulu until our next line, right? Our next line is the 5th at 1500 Zulu. So this is the 4th until the 5th at 14:59 Zulu. This line right here is what they're predicting the weather to be.
So each individual line designates a specific time window.
Exactly.
Look at each one individually.
Exactly. So this is a forecast from this time to this time. Okay, starting at 1500 Zulu exactly until 21:59 Zulu. So we're looking at this time window here, right? This is what they're predicting the weather to do. Does that make sense? So they're each their own forecast for a certain time period. Just like you said. Does everybody grasp that?
Yeah, but I know this is probably dumb, but what's the FM stand for?
That means from.
From.
Yep.
What's the PROB30 stand for?
So this one right here. Okay, remember how like with METAR there's that SPECI that we talked about?
Yes.
This is like a SPECI kind of. What this does is this says that there's a 30% chance, so probably 30% chance that during this next window here, from the 5th at 2200 Zulu until the 6th at 1 Zulu, so sometime in this window here, They're expecting the weather to go down to 2 miles visibility, moderate thunderstorms and rain, or moderate rain and thunderstorms, overcast at 1,500 feet cumulonimbus. So here's where a little confusion jumps in. We call this part the main body. Okay. We call this next line, the Prob 30 line, we call this conditional or tempo language. Okay. Conditional language. Okay. So this is still the valid forecast for this time period, but they're just saying that there's going to be some time in that forecast, they're expecting a drastic change in visibility and weather, sky conditions. So, yeah. So it's
Okay,
a lot like
so-
a temporary or a
So
specific.
how seriously do you take that probability as a dispatcher?
It is just as valid as the main body. So, this being said, sometimes the weather gets better for some period of time. So, let's reverse these two. So, the Prob 30 here, let's pretend that this was the forecast for the Prob 30, and this was the forecast for the main body. Does that make sense? So we just flip-flop these two. Sometimes this happens where they expect it to get better during a period of time. Sometime during that forecast for a small portion of time. Okay. In that case, as dispatchers, this conditional language can only hurt us. It can never help us. So we have to take this as, might as well be up in the main body here. So for this time period, does, thinking like, do I require an alternate? Does that require an alternate? That forecast?
No.
Right, because it meets our 1, 2, 3 rule, right? So 1 hour before, 1 hour after our ETA, we have 6 miles of visibility and 3,000 foot ceilings. So we pass on all things, right? But because we have this conditional language here, we do require an alternate. Because we don't know when that's going to hit. And it's valid for this entire forecast window. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does.
So just the main thing to remember when we're talking about TAFs and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's the important thing to remember with the TAF is conditional language can only hurt us. It can never help us. So let's just say that this conditional language, let's say that it ended on the 5th at 2300 Zulu. Okay, so they are only expecting this to pop up sometime in a 1 hour window. Then that means that from 24 to this next line, we may not need an alternate. It just depends on when our ETA falls at that point. So that's our TAF. Super easy to decode, right? Everybody good with it? Somebody want to decode this one right here?
I'll give it a try.
Okay.
So from 2200 Zulu on the 5th. Yeah, from radial 30 or 3.
So remember, it's in 360 degrees. So you don't need to say radial, just say
from 301.
Not quite. So this is exactly what it reads. 30 degrees.
Oh, that's right. 30 degrees. And then 12, something at 18 knots. 12
gusts.
Oh, gusts. What does that mean when it says 12 gusts at 18 knots? If it's at 30 degrees. Oh, so 12 to 18 knots. Visibility 6 miles. Ceiling scattered at 1,500 feet. Broken at 3,000 feet.
Could you guys hear what I said there, or was I muted? I'm really sorry.
I could hear it.
Muted.
Okay. All right. So what it's saying there is 030 at 12 knots, right? So the steady wind speed is 12 knots. Okay. But there's gusts of winds that will peak at 18 knots during this time, during this forecast period. Okay, they're guessing that there will be strong wind gusts that just kind of reach speeds of 18 knots. Okay, did good. So that's what I wanted to kind of identify. But other than that, I mean, these are all the same as a METAR. Everything's the same as the METAR, right? It's just simplified because it's a forecast. It's a guess. We're not going to get crazy accurate when we're guessing, So, somebody want to guess what that all means?
Light rain shower. And is that thunderstorm in the vicinity?
Exactly. You killed it. So TAFs, just like METARs, look at a lot of them. Really, if you get the METAR down pat, you'll get the TAF down pat. Okay. But stick to the formula, It's in the same formula where you got wind speed, visibility, sky condition. Wind speed, visibility, sky condition. It's how it's always going to be in a TAF. Alrighty. So here you go. FM, it's from, is how we read it. Probability, you can have a prob 30, 40, or 50. Okay. Tempo is, we read it just like a prob 30, 40, 50. This is in fact what we see more often than not. You don't see those prob 30s or whatever very much unless you're looking at Canada. Typically we just see tempo, okay, or becoming, okay. Gradual change, not more than 2 hours. That's typically the conditional language that we see. Tempo, becoming. So here's another one. Minneapolis, 30th at 0539 Zulu. Winds are 30. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the valid time. So valid from the 30th at 6 Zulu until the 1st at 12 Zulu. Winds are 280 at 9 knots. 2 miles of visibility, light drizzle and snow. Mist becoming, overcast at 400. Temporary is, so once again, it's falling in this main body from the 30th at 6 until the 30th at 7. They're expecting visibility to drop to 1.5 statute miles. Light freezing, drizzle, snow, and mist from 300 to 700. From the 30th at 7. So this is just broken up weird. It's like they cut and paste and it destroyed the format. Anyway, so that's the next line, blah, blah, blah. So we're gonna get really familiar with TAFs and METARs when we get into the practical portion. We're gonna start looking at legal to go. Do I need an alternate? 1 nav aid, 2 nav aid rule, all that stuff. So, okay, FAs are area forecasts. It's basically taking one of these sections. You can see that the country's broke up into like 6 areas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So the area forecast is a forecast for this general area. Okay. So it's like an even more like non-predictable than a TAF. I don't know. Just gives you a general idea. Not something we spend a whole lot of time on because it's just so vague. You know, it says like large upper trough from the northern plains into southern New Mexico will continue moving eastward. Like, it's so vague. You get a lot more information on different charts, and it takes a lot less time to get it. So winds and temperatures aloft. This is another one that we're going to be using a lot. This is giving us winds and temperatures at different altitudes. So, you know, those weather balloons that they release, this is what those weather balloons are measuring. Well, one of the things that the weather balloons are measuring is the wind speed, direction, and temperatures at these various altitudes. So this is what the winds are going to be doing at 3,000 feet, 6,000 feet, 9,000, 12,000, 18,000, 24, 30, 34, and 39,000 feet for these stations. Okay. Like Amarillo, Denver, don't know. St. Louis. Oh man, my allergies are getting super bad. But what this is, or how they break this up, is into 2-digit increments. So let's take 39,000 feet. Let's take this first one over ALS, okay? 24, 68, 62. Okay, that's the 6 digits right here. Does everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. The first 2 digits, we add a 0 to, and that gives us our wind direction. Okay. The next 2 are what? Just take a guess.
Knots and temperature.
Knots. So this is our wind speed. And then the last 2 digits are our temperature. Okay. So wind direction, wind speed, temperature. Okay. Now let's think about, we talked about adiabatic lapse rates and blah, blah, blah last week. Let's use our brains here and think about 39,000 feet. Let's use our standard atmosphere at sea level. What is it? What is our standard temperature?
Altimeter?
I'm sorry, standard temperature at sea level.
15 degrees Celsius.
Okay, good. 15 degrees Celsius. Now, what's our standard adiabatic lapse rate?
2 degrees per 1,000 feet.
So
Isn't it negative?
Yeah, negative 2 degrees per 1,000 feet. Okay, so that means every 1,000 feet we climb, it's going to be 2 degrees colder. Okay, so let's do the math here. 39,000 feet. Okay, using a standard lapse rate of 2 degrees Celsius per 1,000 feet. We can assume that the temperature at 39,000 feet, the standard temperature at 39,000 feet, 2 times 9, 18. So negative 78 degrees. I'm sorry. We've got to add 15 to that. So negative 63 degrees. Okay. Our standard temperature at 39,000 feet is going to be negative 63 degrees Celsius. So why don't you think there's a negative sign in front of that 62? You can see a negative sign here, right?
Because everything that says right there, temperatures above 24,000 feet are always negative.
Right.
So it's just an extra character space that you don't really need as long as you remember at that altitude, it's automatically negative.
Yep. Everything above 24,000 feet is assumed to be a negative temperature. You will never, ever, 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 ever have a positive temperature above 24,000 feet. Ever. That means those guys that climb Mount Everest will never have a positive temperature at the summit. It's always going to be negative degrees. Okay. All right. Sometimes they throw a little tricky trick at us. Okay. Let's look at this one, for example. 730649. Okay, we know this is supposed to be wind direction, and we know this is supposed to be wind speed, and we know this is supposed to be our temp. Do we have a 730 degrees?
No.
No.
No, it'd be 073, right?
Nope. If it was 073, it'd be labeled as 07. Okay. Okay. So, wind direction, wind speed, and temp. Okay, the way we figure out what direction this is supposed to be coming from is we take 730 and we subtract 360. What does that come to? Bueller?
370.
370?
Yeah.
287.
No.
$730 minus 360.
Oh, what the?
That's 370.
Yeah, that is 370. What the crap? Oh, duh. Okay. My bad. Not minus 360. So 730649. My bad. Wind direction, wind speed, and temp. We're not subtracting 360. We're going to take 50 off of that. So that gives us 230 degrees. Does that make sense? So we subtract 50, but why are we doing that? Because our wind speed is greater than 100 knots. So we just put a 1 in front of there. Anytime we see something that is greater than 360, so 36, anything above 36 in that column will always be a wind speed greater than 100 knots. So we always just carry that 1 over to there, subtract 50 from here to get our wind direction. Okay. So they did that because they always want to keep it 6 digits and they're lazy. Does that make sense?
No, you completely lost me. How did you do that again?
So let's take I'm sorry. Let's say that it's 82, 15, 52. Remember, this is our wind direction. Oops. wind speed, and temp, right? Okay, so if we take 82 and subtract 50 from it, what does that give us? Bueller?
32, but where'd you get the 50 from? What's that from?
It's just assumed.
Oh, okay.
So with wind direction, if it's greater than 360, so 36 is what you'll see. If it's greater than 36, then we subtract 50 from that number. Okay.
Oh, okay, okay.
And then for our wind speed, we add 100 to it. So our wind speed is 150 knots. Okay. And then our temp would be negative 52 in this case. Is it making sense now?
Yeah, so you subtract 50 from the one column and you add 100 to the next column.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we see that prime example right here and right here. 731961.
So you say when the wind direction is greater than 3.6,
Yeah.
then you subtract 50.
Yep. So on this,
Oh, yeah,
let's do this.
a circle. I understand.
Yep. Let's do this one. So somebody tell me what my wind direction is.
$230.
230. And that's because we took 73, subtracted 50, and that gave us 23. We add our 0 at the end. Okay. So what is our wind speed?
119 knots.
119 knots in our temperature.
Negative 60 degrees.
Good. Good, good, good. Okay. We use this chart for en route planning, okay? So once we've reached the top of our cruise to get our performance numbers for our flight, this is the chart we're going to use.
So, Garrett, I don't see any wind directions that are like 37, 38. But if you're subtracting 50 from 37, 38, isn't that a negative number?
They will never be less than 50. Oops. Does that make sense? So those first two numbers, you'll never have a number less than 50.
Okay.
It'll be from 50 to 86. Because 50 would be 0000, right?
Right.
And 86 would be 360.
Okay. I guess then I don't know where that idea of 36 came from.
Well, I mean, 36, if it's coming from the due north, so really it's like the number you'll see there is 51 to 85. But to prove my point, I'm saying 50 to 86. But but if it's coming from due north at a speed greater than 100, I guess, yeah, it would be either 50 or 86 is what you'd see it as.
So you'd never see 37 to 89 or to
50.
40.
Yeah, to 49. 37 to 49, you'll never see it.
So then, sorry, I'm my connection is a little spotty, so I keep missing little things. So for example, if we look over the 30,000 foot column for Denver, where it starts 20, so it's 23, 53, 47. I think I'm not catching how you read that.
Okay. So we break it up into 2-digit increments. Okay. So our first one is 23. Our second set is 53, and our third set would be 47, right?
Right.
So our first set is our wind direction, second set is our wind speed, and third set is our temperature. Okay, so let's start with wind direction. If it's 0 to 360 and the wind speed is less than 100 knots, then we will see we just add a 0 onto that, and that becomes our wind direction. Does that make sense there?
Okay, so if the wind were over 100, then that's where you get into the 50s. If it's under 100, then just put a 0 on the end, and it's coming from 230.
Correct. And our wind speed would be 53 knots, and our temperature would be -47 because our temps above 24,000 feet are assumed to be negative. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go over these a lot, like I said, during the flight planning, because we use this chart for our performance numbers in our cruise section of flight. So have no fear. We also use that. We figure out what we call ISA, International Standard Atmosphere. So, you know how I figured out that at 39,000 feet, our standard temperature is -63 degrees Celsius. Well, we'll use our ISA, so -63 degrees. We'll read what it actually is reporting, and then we get what we call our ISA deviation. Is it hotter or warmer than standard? And then with that number, we'll figure out some performance stuff. So don't get too worried about that right now. Just understand that we break that 6-digit number set up into 2-digit sets. So there's 3 sets: wind direction, wind speed, and temperature. That's what you guys need to really grasp there. Okay, severe weather reports. Yeah, basically, don't look at these like ever. We get a lot of volcano reports and stuff like that. We call them ASHTAMs. But basically, you'll know it when you get it. Nothing we need to worry about in this class. I think you guys even talked about volcanic ash, right? And why it's dangerous for planes with Davis.
It was pretty brief.
Yeah. So volcanic ash, basically what it does is when it enters the turbine, it turns into glass, basically, and will freeze up your engine. So you'll have total engine failure. Another reason why volcanic ash is because volcanic ash is made up of silica. You know, like that crap you find in your shoes. Basically turns to glass inside the engine. Another reason why volcanic ash is super dangerous is because of there's a lot of like static electricity and a lot of like electrical fields that are going on. So you get a lot of that, like St. Elmo's fire. It's basically like a lightning ball, and rather than a bolt, it's like the shape of a ball and floats around and zaps everything. I don't know. You get a lot of lightning bolts, stuff like that, in volcanic ash. They're just super electrically charged. So it's like suicide flying into volcanic ash, basically. Just as bad, just as much so as flying into like a towering cumulonimbus cloud. So, convective sigmets. Convective sigmets, what they're doing is warning us of severe or greater turbulence, severe icing, low-level wind shear, tornadoes, lines of thunderstorms, wide areas of embedded thunderstorms, and greater than 3/4 inch hail or 50-knot winds. So we have our standard sigmets, which was this previous slide. So sigmets, this is wrong. This information is wrong. Sigmets are identifying like areas of just like standard icing, stuff like that. Convective sigmets are like severe, it's convective activity, right? So that extreme lifting force that we talked about that generates the thunderstorms and stuff like that. That's what our convective sigmets are identifying. Notice to airmen, we've gone over these. I'm not going to beat that dead horse. And then we have a whole bunch of weather charts. We talked about these symbols last week, so I'm not going to go into that. This right here, this is what we call a wind barb. So this is telling us that winds are coming from the northwest, and this longer flag here represents 10 knots. The shorter flag right there represents 5 knots. So we can assume that the winds are coming from the northwest at a total of 15 knots. Okay, this little ball at the end, see how it's completely shaded in? That's showing that there's overcast clouds. And that's all we really need to worry about right now. This kind of talks about it a little bit more. That ball at the end of that wind barb, there you go. Clear, fused, scattered, broken, breaks, and overcast, obscured, or missing or partial obscuration. Typically, you're only going to see these, and not even that one. You're just going to see this, 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 or this. This right here, become familiar, be comfortable with these right here, but don't feel like you have to memorize these. We don't look at these weather depiction charts all that often, okay? Like I said, there's a lot more information on other charts that we can look at, and this stuff is strictly just informational. These weather depiction charts, I rarely opened dispatching, but I will tell you this, you are going to be tested on these in the practical, so just get a pretty basic understanding. Rain, sometimes you'll see like a dot associated with this thunderstorm, or sorry, you'll see a dot on top of this or a dot on top of that. You know, that means rain, thunderstorms and rain, rain showers, things like that. So you can mix, just like with the little abbreviation on the METAR, you can mix these symbols up to produce what type of precipitation is falling. So here's a weather depiction chart. Super old school, but it also kind of helps because you can see the areas where, you know, you've got IFR weather pretty easily. Do you have IFR weather anywhere in this area? Hell no. Nice flying. But you can assume that you're probably going to have IFR flying in this area of the United States, right? The important thing to remember with these weather depiction charts is they all have this little key here. So if you're asked a question about a weather depiction chart, just read the text, because you're probably going to have a lot of information in the text and you're going to be able to answer the question. So read the text. Contoured without shading, MVFR areas SIGs greater than or equal to 1,000 feet, but less than or equal to 3,000 feet. And visibility greater than or equal to 3 to less than or equal to 5 miles. Pretty simple, right? So it's saying, you know, like this general area minus these little spots are MVFR. Okay, you can see those little snow symbols. 2 X's together mean moderate snow. Okay, you can just look, you know, mist, other things like that. You can just kind of play around with those weather depiction charts. All of these are on aviationweather.gov if you guys want to go in and look at them, get familiar with them. But like I said, you get a lot more information off of weather charts a lot quicker than using this. This just gives you a good idea of what's happening throughout the entire United States. And don't really care. Don't really care. Low level significant prognostic chart. Here you can see more of those symbols. Okay. Once again, the important thing to remember on these charts, because this will be part of your oral test, it tells you right here what these different symbols mean, with the exception of this right here. So if he asks you what's going on right here, you go, oh, those look like little spines. Oh, right here, freezing level at surface. If he says, oh, what's this area right here, this solid line? Oh, ceiling's less than 1,000 feet. Okay. Super simple. Read the chart. The text helps you a lot. Okay, something to remember is that each one of these panels are for a 6-hour increment. So it's kind of like a TAF, but for the entire country rather than a specific geographical area. High level significant weather just like the low level significant weather, it all is the same. Oh, winds and temperatures aloft. Okay. This is that same exact chart we were looking at a second ago. It's going to ask for a flight level at 390. The winds, remember we call this a wind barb. Okay. Winds are coming from the west. Think of this as like a bow and arrow piece right here. And this is the fletching. So if you're trying to figure out the weather direction, this is coming from the west to the east. You know, does that make sense, what I just said?
Yeah, it does.
Pretty easy way to look at it, right? Looks like a bow and arrow shooting through the sky. Okay, so just like I said before, we take these in increments. So these two longer barbs, you've got two long, one short. Each one of these is 10 knots for the longer. And this shorter one is 5 knots. So we just add them all together to get 25 knots. And we're going to look at these charts too. I'm just trying to get through all of this because we're over time. Okay. So 25 knots, negative 58 degrees at our altitude. Blah, blah, blah. I think we're good. Okay. Sorry I kept you guys late tonight. I just wanted to get through the rest of those charts because a lot of them don't mean anything. Your homework, look at this page. Love it. Be very familiar with it. Look at as many METARs and TAFs as you can stand. Try to become familiar with them. And